Hey guys, welcome to Medieval Monday. This is a very special edition because it is launch week, and I feel like I've been looking forward to this and hyping this up for so long that I can't believe it's here. Today is also a somber day in the States because we are remembering 9/11. We are also looking at the hurricanes and all of the things that are going on. So, I on one hand, I'm celebrating and I'm really, really happy and excited, and on the other, we have things to think about, and I'm just really happy that my family and friends in Florida seem to be safe, and I'm praying for all of those people that are affected. And we started off the day showing the kids a video about 9/11 because they are so little that they don't really know anything about it. And I'm no longer in the classroom. We always had a great memorial that kind of kept it alive, but now that I'm not there, I have to kind of make sure we do something here at the house to remember. And so, I don't want to minimize that, but it is launch week and getting ready for the Chiefs Countess on Thursday. So this is Medieval Monday, so we're going to talk about medieval. Thank you for being excited for the book, Laura, aka Mom. So the book is coming out. The next book in the Border series is coming out this Thursday. So tonight I just want to talk about a little bit about the book, the launch, some giveaways that I have going on. The Chief's Maiden is the third book in the Border series, and the Border series is set along the English-Scottish border in the 13th century. So it is a medieval historical romance, and this is the third book, but it's actually kind of 3.5, because the first novella, the prequel, The Ward's Bride, tells the story a little bit of the background 30 years before The Thief's Countess, which is book 1. I had the pleasure of actually going to the Inspiration Castle at Bamberg this summer, and so a lot of if you're following me on Instagram or Twitter or even some of the Facebook posts here in the quotes, you're seeing a lot of castles and such in the background, and that was from that trip this summer. So that's really neat to be able to have those photos, and today I posted what I think is an incredible pic on my Instagram at Cecilia Mecca, and that's actually Bamberg. So I talked about Brockburg, and that's the castle that we're going to in the Chief's Maiden, but it's actually Bamberg, which is in Northumberland and England. So, but yeah, if you're on Instagram, you can follow me there. Instagram, I tend to do a lot of quotes and kind of behind the scenes thing. Twitter, I definitely love Twitter. It's actually my favorite social network, to be honest with you. But I focus more about the writing and the craft and things like that. So fellow authors, make sure you're following on Twitter. And here on Facebook, it's Medieval Monday and all kinds of things. So first of all, I want to say hello to those of you that are joining. Hi, Cindy, and hi, Donna. Nice to see you here. So let's talk about the Chief's Maiden. It is the third book in the Border series, and the biggest difference with this one and the other books, and welcome to fire off a question, and we're going to talk about the giveaways in a bit, but the biggest difference is our first Scottish hero. So we have Torrin Kerr, who is the chief of Clan Kerr, and again, he's our first Scottish hero. The books kind of go back and forth between England and Scotland because it is on the border. And if you read The Thief's Countess or The Lord's Captive, we pretty much have the Clan Kerr on one side, and in England, the Warrens and Lady Sarah Kaiser. And in the first book, Clan Kerr is actually what we think as maybe an enemy to the Warrens or the bad guy or guys, but really they're not. And we learn that every story has two sides, and so they have theirs too. So it's really fun to write Torrin because, again, he's our first Scottish hero, and he is sent to kill the English warden for reasons that you're going to have to read the book to find out. And so he goes down to England and goes to a tournament. And so that's kind of the medieval part that I want to talk about tonight. Every Monday, I try to give some fun facts and things that I've learned writing the books. This was the first tournament that I wrote, and I'm a huge fan of medieval times. Don't know if anyone's ever been there, but yeah, medieval times only gives you so much reality, right? So I mean, I love everything medieval. I always have. So if there's a movie or there's a TV show and it has medieval England or Scotland or anything, I'm usually watching it. So yes, I've seen tournaments and jousts and that kind of thing, but I never really dug in research-wise, and so it was really a lot of fun to do that, to bring Torrin down for our fictional Tournament of the North, which I don't imagine that would have actually happened. It probably would have been a really bad scene. But in the Border Series, the Tournament of the North is a tournament where for one day of the year, the Scots and the English knights along the border can kind of come together peaceably, as peaceably as can be along the border in a tournament. And there's 100 knights on each side. And of course, Torrencar comes down and meets our heroine, Lady Juliet. So about the tournament, some of the things that I was surprised about, first of all, I was surprised how deadly they were. I mean, I obviously can imagine that it's not the safest thing in the world to participate in a tournament, but the joust, which is what a lot of us, which I thought of as kind of the pinnacle of the tournament, really kind of came into its own later on in the later Middle Ages. So at one point, the joust was just kind of a warm-up. It was not the kind of main spectacle or the main event. At the time of my book in the 13th century, it would have more been the melee, which is the main event. And the melee is basically, because the tournament was a training ground, so at times of in between, fighting in between battles and war, knights had to hone their skills. And so they used the tournaments to train. And so basically it would be two sides coming against each other. Sometimes the number of people were set, sometimes it wasn't, and literally it would be a mock battle. And so the melee was, as you can imagine, extremely dangerous. People died all of the time. So yeah, and then everybody else was there to watch. So it kind of reminded me, as I read about the tournament, of the Roman times and all of that, and it just really a lot more dangerous than I expected. People were killed all the time, and so they tried to regulate it a little bit. Eventually, blunted weapons were used, but as you can imagine, that only helped just a little bit. They were at one point you had to basically have a license to have a tournament, so they couldn't have been held just about anywhere. As I kind of mentioned in the books, it definitely takes some license. Most of us historical romance authors, even if we know the research, we do take a little bit of poetic license, and I did there. And because at this point in time, in the 13th century, the tournaments would have only been held in England, at least, in specific places, and not anybody could just go ahead and have a tournament. But, that's one of those times where we just, let that slip underneath the carpet. So, hi Marina, how are you? Thank you for being here. We're talking about medieval tournaments and how I'm surprised they're not just like medieval times. Go figure. So yeah, the melee was really the main event. And so in the Chief's Maiden, we don't actually get to see the melee, but everything is leading up to that. So the jousts and all of the other feats of strength are kind of the precursors. And I was surprised that tournaments were held over a number of days. In the Chiefs, it's over a week period, and that was pretty typical, because normally tournaments were to celebrate something. So whether it was a victory in battle or a wedding, or like I said, sometimes in between wars and things to hone skills, but they're usually a celebration. And so it was held over multiple days. And I'm really excited to feature a tournament in the Chief's Maiden. So yeah, you're welcome. Thank you so much for being here. So anyway, the Chief's Maiden does come out on Thursday. Super excited about that. So I always run giveaways during launch time. I run giveaways all the time, but this one is special. So for anyone who has either read the books and doesn't have the paperbacks, or maybe you haven't read it at all, maybe you have not ever been a part of the Border series, then welcome. I'm giving away all of the books, so that's 4 books up to this point. That's including the prequel novella, so signed paperbacks. And I'm going to go ahead and pop the link in here, and that is the launch giveaway. And so that will be over on Thursday. On the day of the launch, I'll pick a winner, and I will announce the winner here and in the CM Insider, which is my newsletter. I'm also hosting a giveaway on Goodreads for a Chief's Maiden paperback. So one giveaway just ended, and another one is just starting up. And so you can go on to Goodreads anytime. Add Chief's Maiden to your TBR list. That actually helps it quite a bit, because as a new author, I released the very first book in February. So I'm pretty new still, and getting the word out about the books has been the biggest challenge. And so stick it on your TBR list if it's something that you're interested in, if you love historical romance and medieval romance, and enter to win that paperback. So you haven't read, what? Do you like historical romance? I mean, if you don't, I think you should read it anyway. But if you like historical romance, then you're in good shape. So yeah, I'm giving away all of the paperbacks. That's actually on my website. So if you go to ceciliamecca.com, at the bottom there's a tab for giveaways, and I'll almost always have at least one giveaway going on. And so you can do that, or like I said, I'll put the link in here. Cindy, thank you. You are one of my most avid fans, and I thank you so much for that. And I appreciate the plug. So I'm glad you like them. I write books that I like to read. You know, books that are kind of steeped in history. I'm plotting the next book now, and I usually start with the history. I'm looking at a specific year, a specific time period, you know, what's happening then, and what context can we put these characters in? Because of course it's all about the characters. And so, you know, I'm thinking of those two things. What historical context would make sense? And, you know, what are the goals and the motivations for these characters within that history? And so, you know, I did have one person mention, I think back on the Thieves' Countess, that this seems to be kind of a romanticized idea of what the borderlands were like at this time. And I'm going to be honest with you, yes, it very much is. So I have never lived in England or Scotland. I've definitely never been in any battles or tournaments or wars. And I'm sure it's a highly romanticized time of the historic account of the medieval times. But that's one of the things I love about historical romance, is kind of just taking yourself out of, you know, all of the things that are going on in our world and putting yourselves into, and putting us as a reader into another world. And so that's why I almost read historical exclusively. And I love romance, and I've read it for 20 years, but I love the historical as much. Just found you last week through, oh, the Elizabeth Rose release. That was so much fun. I met Elizabeth Rose this summer at RWA, which is a conference, and it was really neat to meet other historical authors. I spent about 2 hours in Epcot talking about the settings of you know, England and Scotland, and where we put people, and, you know, we were talking about scenes in barns and in castles, and it was just so much fun. Thank you, Mom. Mom loves the top. It was so much fun to talk to other authors, and I love talking to readers about you know, really kind of digging into that historical romance genre. So yeah, anytime if you have a question, guys, pop it in there. I just want to mention the giveaway. So I have the paperback giveaway. So if anyone here is a Pinterest fan, I am doing the very first Pinterest party next Tuesday. I believe that's the 19th, whatever the 19th is. So that should be a lot of fun, because that was a request. So someone mentioned, you know, I love Pinterest. Are you on Pinterest? And yes, I have inspiration boards on Pinterest for all of the books. And because I typically